Dan, thanks very much for coming in and having a chat with me today on our podcast, #GreatAtBusiness. I thought it was an appropriate one for you to go on, self-titled greatness.
Thanks, Luke. I'll go for #GoodAtData.
Okay, nice. Yeah, like it. So you lived in flat 5 and I was in flat 3 about 20 years ago, more than that, 23 years ago. And we sort of briefly met in the AGM board meetings and then started working together when I started working with C5. I think it was probably 2011, 2012. And then sort of since then, you were at C5 for a while, and then we've worked together with Continuum. We set up a pub at some stage as well, which was great fun. So know each other well. But I think for the people that don't know you, could you want to tell us a couple of minutes about yourself, what you're doing in Jersey and what you've been up to?
Well, I found myself in Jersey by accident, really, like many people. And but I've been in data my whole career, and that kind of divides into sort of 3 sections, really, almost of equal length. So I spent 10 years in London after university, writing financial systems for hedge funds, balance sheets and things, line by line with no productivity tools whatsoever. So handcrafted SQL.
Yeah.
Then, when I moved over here, there wasn't a lot of that going on. So then joined what was then Contract 5 and then was there for 10 years. And then left there to set up Continuum, where I am still now, about 12 years ago, 11 and a half years ago. And it's been data all the way through. So that's really my passion.
Cool. And it was data at university?
I did physics at university.
Okay.
Which is kind of a good generalist problem-solving course if you're good at maths, but not that good at maths.
Right, fair enough. Was it straight into the London financial services coding? What was the transition from going from physics to...
Well, there wasn't a lot of work around in the early 90s. So I took a year and a half out, went travelling. I'd earned some money just in a sort of short-term job previously. And then when I came back, just sort of fell into doing data, really, and then kind of progressed from there.
What was the process to train up on? How did it work? Back like you reading books? I mean, what was the way that it worked to get good?
I was fortunate in the role I had in between college and going away was with KPMG in their technology team.
Okay.
And they had a thing called CompuServe, which was a precursor to the internet. It was paid for, so it was like it had, there weren't too many time wasters in there. And it was a fantastic way of being able to research, early way of doing it. And, I got into doing Access, which was a personal productivity database back in the day. And then through that, built some systems and then found a job on the internet in 1994 with the hedge fund and was then there for 10 years.
Wow. And what were you building for the hedge fund? So you said balance sheets, but what does that mean?
Well, it was a hedge fund that traded everything. So it was built all the profit and loss, all of the reconciliations and all of the regulatory reporting. And they said, can you just stick a general ledger on this? And I said, sure, how hard could it be?
Right.
This is where every accountant out there laughs and says it's very, very hard.
Yeah, not that easy. And in terms of career progression then, so starting off, was there quite a decent sized tech team at the hedge fund, or how big was the team at the hedge fund?
When I joined, there were 5 people.
Okay.
So there was a quant who wrote all the trading models, and then I did all the back office systems, everything else.
In terms of the move to Jersey, why did you want to leave the hedge? Just done your time, or?
Well, after 10 years, there were 200 people there.
Right, wow.
And so I was like a sort of dot on a balloon that had been inflated rapidly, suddenly managing teams across a couple of offices in America and here. And
so you were actually managing inside that business as well.
Yeah.
So what was the team size there? How many people were you looking after?
Gosh, I think we had probably a team of 5 or 6.
Okay, cool.
Developers. That was not by design. It was like got onto a rocket and it took off.
Yeah.
So 10 years of that was great. I brought in, had some really good people in the team, one of whom now works for us again, which is great. Really nice sort of circularity, like our story,
Was it straight into Contract 5 then when you came over?
I was here for a few months.
Okay.
Not really finding anything interesting, and then I was introduced to Contract 5.
And in that role, was that straight into business intelligence and what was the early days?
That didn't exist in those days.
Did it not?
No, it was just writing SQL databases.
Right.
Basically reporting databases for people. So they have data coming from multiple systems and they need a single way of reporting that both to the group, internally for client profitability. And
So mostly accounting. Was it mostly accounting data, or was it?
No, banking data.
Right.
So bank accounts, loans, retrocessions,
Right.
and trust income and stockbroking income. So still the same problem that everyone has today.
Why? Sorry, what do you mean by that?
Well, blending data from multiple systems together to get a single view of the truth.
Yeah. I guess when I got involved with C5, I think there was about 40 in the team there, 2011. So it was from 5 to 40, about 7 or 8 years, something like that. How was your team developing over that period? What were you up to, sort of 6, 7, or what? How did it work, getting the right people together there?
Yeah, I mean, to start with, I was the only person doing just pure data. The other guys were writing more traditional sort of 2 or 3 tier systems with a front end, and then they'd have a database. As always, the biggest hire was to get to number 2. And then fortunately, we were able to continue that growth. And I think after 10 years, there was probably 13, 14 people in that team when I left. We could have scaled faster. There was probably demand to scale faster, but, not easy to find those skills. Remote work wasn't a thing in those days. So, and of course, obviously, you've still got the regulatory requirements.
I don't know how many businesses, I mean, certainly in a small business context, I think we're using like 18 different apps. So and the complaint that we get from the team is obviously, if I go and do something, I've got to change it there, I've got to change it there, because they're not talking to each other.
Yeah.
And so it really comes down to the glue. What was the decision point where you thought, actually, I can see how this all works. I've obviously done it for 10 years in London. I've done it for 10 years in Jersey. How did you go about thinking there's something that's different? There's a new way that this should be done. And actually, I want to go and do it myself. I mean, did you decide to do it yourself, or did you want to do it via C5, or what was the situation back in the day?
I mean, there was a necessary tension between, where I like, and I don't know if that's physics or not, but it's kind of that abstraction of trying to be at a higher level to be able to do more in the same amount of time.
So you mean being able to scale?
Yeah, but also, yes, but to scale by doing more per person, not just adding people. It's hard to train people into being effective data people. So really, it was more about just being patient and knowing who was good, and then people would become available. Then you could get them.
So we talked about being close to the data and in the river, but we're not actually like, how are you making sure people can swim? What was there would people come in and fall away, or was there a good process around looking after them?
Hard to remember, isn't it?
It's a long time.
I mean, I guess, you remember the ones that worked out, and it was really people who were data minded. I've always wanted to use like the simplest technology to do the most that's still 100% right, is provably right. And in the past, that would be with code. So you had to be able to write good SQL in order to be able to build an effective data warehouse, data mart, or whatever it is you're building. There were tools that started coming out, like a product called Warescape that I introduced, and where that allowed you to probably do the 80-20.
Yeah.
So the 80% of a project that is just boring, routine, people could just put their headphones in and just crank it out effectively in Notepad, took 20% of the time now, right? And so then you could focus on the hard stuff, which is when the data problems emerge. Quite often people just build something and then you get to the end and then it turns out the data was nothing like what the spec was, which is quite common. And then by that point, it's a panic to try and come up with an acceptable outcome to the project.
When was Warescape starting to solve the garbage in, garbage out problem, or was it not? The hardest bit of projects that we used to talk about was, that migration piece. Back then, was it already being solved before Alteryx, or how was it working in terms of making sure the core data was right?
I mean, effectively, Warescape would get you to the problem statement quicker, and it would ensure that everyone was writing compliant code with good error handling and design, architectural design of what the database should look like. As a professional services business, as we were, introducing product sales into a professional services business is difficult because people are managed by different metrics. It's much more about personal utilization. You can only sell someone's time once. And so finding enough people who would then be recoverable but also well paid was difficult. You're also starting to cannibalize yourself by diverting client monies towards someone else's product in order to take advantage of the benefits. But obviously, if you're a professional services business, then that's a difficult decision to make. As part of, the Microsoft ecosystem, it's great. As a team, we used to go to the conferences. We were really leading on implementation. We were very good at it. And one saw Power BI, the early versions of Power BI coming out. And I thought that was very interesting. I don't remember, we had a never-ending dashboard project for all of the time recording utilization because it was so buggy. But, I thought that was very interesting. And it was a very interesting approach that you could take less technical people who could start being part of the project, not just testing it and then saying it didn't work, and then having to wait for developers who held the keys to then be able to roll out a new version or a fix.
I'm starting to think about transformational professional services. What does that mean? And how do we start looking at, knowledge is free. The data should be there. It probably won't be accurate all the time because people have still got to type stuff into stuff, or at least talk to their phones and get the stuff in. There's still going to be judgment around what to do with that knowledge, and you can probably get the computer to help you with what are my options and which one should I pick based on a certain set of circumstances, but you've still got to feel what those circumstances are. Robo investment advice was never really been a thing people have trusted. I don't know if people are going to want a set of accounts straight out of a software tool without having that interaction, that understanding of how the tax office might feel about those things. What's really going to be interesting in the next couple of years, I think, is, there'll be a lot more knowledge. The judgments will have more options, but it will still be difficult to pick what to do. We won't be able to predict the future. And then actually people are going to need help. So I think there is an opportunity, and that's why it's interesting to hear, how do you actually get people to embrace getting involved with the tech? Because execution is still going to be such a big piece of this, but only if they can use it. Is there things that you've done, even after C5, where you feel that's really worked well in terms of getting people up to speed with, say, Alteryx or a different technology? What do you think is the best way?
Well, as I said, when I and offered the opportunity for C5 to invest if they wanted to, because I wanted to be a good lever. And that was, it felt that product wasn't really the way to go. So I thought, right, I'll do that then. And thought I was going to be a Power BI consultancy, did one project with it with difficult, hard data, and ended up just writing a stored procedure behind it to make the dashboard work. So I thought, right, I'm not doing that anymore. Then I found Alteryx.
What was the time frame between sort of, I think, product rather than service is the way forward, and leaving and then finding Alteryx? How long did it take between those two things?
About a year.
Okay.
Because I thought I was going to be doing Power BI. I was doing a couple of other projects for clients. Then it just wasn't really up to the typical, difficult, messy data, different levels of granularity. We've got as few systems as possible, but we've got HubSpot and Xero. And clients don't match between HubSpot and Xero, right? Because you've got multiple entities that you have financial relationships with, whereas that would just be one name in HubSpot. So how do you combine those together? Which one's which? Do you have to maintain links in both systems? All of that, So everyone really has similar problems. So I found Alteryx, certified on it, really liked it. I thought it was a way to get, in the similar way to Warescape, it was a similar way to stop people making silly mistakes. I kind of fortunately was able to have a couple of clients who gave it a go. The right people got hold of it and said, wow, this is great. And those people are more of a data and information worker type persona. We've got some we've got most of the team are ex-developers. And we've got some very strong clients who are data development background who understood that actually this is a really good way of abstracting what is really hard. And specifically, one of the hardest things in technology is getting it in the hands of the business and letting them be self-sufficient. That's the hardest thing because if you're trying to change an internal system or an internal reporting process, there's got to be a set of requirements. People aren't good at writing requirements, or the right people who should be writing the requirements are too busy. Turning the handle every day, week, month, quarter, year. We were fortunate enough to find some really clever people who were kind of frustrated. They knew what needed to be done. They knew what the starting point was, and they knew what needed to be the outcome. They knew what the right outcome would be. but they just didn't have the tools. And so that was really the gap that we were filling there.
Yeah. And you were always keen to have champions within each of your clients to be able to actually take ownership of it rather than sell professional services into it. What was the logic behind that decision?
I kind of thought it was the next evolution.
Okay.
So I'm always a bit
2.0.
I'm always too quick to think that things are going to change. I thought that the current sort of diagnoses of professional services would have happened a long time ago. I think there's comfort in knowing that there's people who, you're hiring them and they'll do that job for you.
Yeah.
Then it's on them.
Yeah.
Really what we're trying to do is help people take responsibility themselves. Then they get a lot more fun out of it.
Yeah.
Because they get that, the enjoyment of solving a problem and, resolving something and getting time back, having better outcomes.
Yeah.
And, it allows us to work with lots more clients.
Yeah.
Than
having to scale up yourselves with lots of people.
Yeah, if you think that C5, had 70 people, let's say, with 15 clients, we'd be the other way round.
We used to talk about solving the problem at scale in terms of, or not having to have someone in the business, but by wanting someone who's going to invest time in learning the skills and all of that, you're actually taking away a big chunk of the market in terms of the smaller organisations that didn't have the budgets to be able to do that. Do you think with the way that things are changing now, that will change? Do you think more, or what would you change with current technology in terms of that professional services versus product? Is there a change coming there?
Well, I think what we've always tried to do is, or at each stage, I've tried to pick a winner, something that I think is gonna win, and or will be sustainable, will be something that it's worth investing in now, and in 10 years' time, all things being equal, it will still work.
Yeah.
And because it's a product, it will get better without you having to do something. If you write something, you've got to maintain it.
Yeah.
If you can rely on someone else's great product, then that means it's a force multiplier for you as a supplier and as a solution provider, and hopefully help people get more and more outcomes for their investment, more ROI, because obviously we're always having to justify why would you want to spend that money with us? What's the ROI? No one's doing it for fun. The next wave, obviously, we've done predictive analytics, machine learning, AI, all the way through, but it's a very niche product in terms of people understanding it, trusting it, wanting to invest in it. But I guess what GPT 3.5 was 3.5 years ago now, I guess. And as you remember, I went, fell head over heels in love with it. Thought it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. When you ally it with good, clean, repeatable data. You're never going to get good, clean, repeatable data from a system. No. So there has to be a means and systems. So there has to be a means by which you can produce a repeatable, accurate enough view of the as is, in order to then try and do something in terms of saying, well, what will be within probability bounds. And that's always been the difficult part, was what people could go on to do. They very rarely did, which would be to say, well, this should be about outcomes, and helping people try things, make decisions based on believable data, and then be able to see what happened. Did it work?
Yeah.
And if
why do you think that didn't happen that often?
I think there's so many things to do.
Yeah.
That as you solve that problem, there's another one. Yeah. And there's another one. And I think people are improving things with unknown outcomes. Yeah. Is deprioritized. Yeah. In terms of doing something that is a BAU problem.
You have to justify sort of the level of confidence that something's going to make a tangible difference has to be quite high, and so experimentation is not encouraged in the same way.
And so that was quite difficult. We spent, I've spent quite a lot of time and effort on R&D internally with a couple of clients, but also a lot of internal work, which is, you'll remember from, I've never been into internal projects, but in this case it was kind of, this is such a obviously going to be a huge thing, that I thought there was a possibility that we might kind of build a product, or at least a collection of technologies that we believed would make massive differences. Yeah. And it's been super frustrating, right? Coming from a deterministic background.
What does that mean?
That if you, all things being equal, if you put the same inputs in, you get the same output.
Right.
Which is obviously kind of important when you're doing, regulatory reporting or profitability or WIP. Or
decisions that change lives, right?
Yeah, right. It better be the same every time.
Yeah.
And because generative AI is probabilistic, effectively, then you can't know that you're going to get the same answer each time. Now, if you're writing an email or you're processing hopefully not a contract, but at least or getting conversation pieces out of that, you could kind of deal with that.
Yeah.
But in terms of what we do, which is it's got to be additive, it's got to add up to zero, it's got to make sense, then that's more of a, getting those guardrails is more of a challenge. And obviously all of the model makers are investing a huge amount of money and effort in doing this. They've got AI now working on AI to try and improve it.
Yeah.
So I think knowing the areas where this is going to work is the next thing, and it's going to be AI driven.
Yeah. So how did you pick Alteryx back in the day? Because you nailed your colours to the mast in terms of this is my product, and then I remember sort of having a beer at the United Club, and you're like, why don't these people get it? There was that moment where, and then there just seemed to be a tipping point. And so how did you pick, and then how did you get to the tipping point? Because sales is one of the hardest things for people to do. So it'd be really interesting to hear about that, picking that, and then actually the energy that it took to get to that point where you thought, actually, I was right. This is working,
I wasn't wrong. I think
okay. All right, fair enough.
As I said, I thought I was going to be Power BI,
yeah.
And then it was just so messy and I ended up writing store procedures anyway. So I thought, well, that's not the idea.
Yeah.
So I looked at what it was about, and I'd heard of Alteryx before from people at Warescape who thought it was really exciting a few years before. As always, too busy to look. Yeah. So sometimes you need that kind of interregnum break. And I tried Alteryx, and then there were other products around at the time. So ClickView, that's still around.
Okay.
Tableau, I looked at that. Talend, Paxata, there were a whole bunch of different technologies of the kind of SME type business. I didn't want to get into doing mega, big corp
enterprise stuff.
Because there's going back into the same problems. And then it was just Alteryx, and I just really liked it, and it was just one of those things, and I solved it.
But liked it because it fixed it was better than Warescape from a repeatability point of view, or what problem did it fix that was different?
There was no code.
No code.
It was all just visual and things that would be quite hard to do in SQL. You'd have to be quite an advanced SQL developer to be able to do things.
Right.
You could do, someone could do in Alteryx without even knowing they were doing what someone would have to do in SQL otherwise. Okay. And it's all visual, and you can follow, well, how come that row count's gone down? I must have done something wrong. Whereas if you're building that in a system, then you're having to look for all that.
You understand the language. You have to understand the language and what you've written, rather than there's a process fallen over, I need to redefine the process.
And you've got to be good at it.
Yeah.
You've got to know where the problems are, nulls, and not joining and duplications and all of that sort of stuff that you can think it's fine because it runs and there's no errors.
Yeah.
But how do you know it's right? How can you prove what's there? And so the ability to find a product that you could train people quite quickly to become very good at.
So it was scalable. Because you could, other people who weren't coders and didn't know how to do it could actually use it in the businesses. That was one thing. The interface presumably was a workflow-based interface, and little lines drawn to each other and all that
Data
sort of
just
stuff.
Flows through it. Yeah.
Data just flows through it, and there was some consultancy in having to join the data sets into Alteryx, I think, back at the start.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, just learning the first time for doing things, but on the whole, people were able to pretty much pick it up themselves. I would say probably 80% of our clients we've never done any professional services for.
Wow! So the sales process. So you thought, I love this product. This is the future. What was the plan? How did you go about winning your clients and getting them on board?
Well, I was fortunate to be in Jersey, obviously, because there's a lot of people have very similar problems.
Yeah.
There's lots of spreadsheets.
Yeah, there are lots of spreadsheets.
So we'd be up there with anywhere else in the spreadsheet Olympics. And there are people who are incredibly clever at Excel, like myself, right? There's lots of people who are very, very good at Excel. And so can solve problems up to a point.
Yeah.
But then if they can't go away at month end, then it's a 3-4 day process to get to a report, or they can't do daily when they'd like to. And, I mean, obviously the 80/20, most of our clients are financial services, but, some of the big early adopters were people like the police.
All right.
Who, in the past, they'd have had a weekly meeting on crime, stats in the island and safeguarding and all of that. But it would take them the week to come up with the information. And then someone says, why is that? That doesn't look right. Whatever, they'd have to go away,
go back and
come back. Whereas, they're able to move to daily and then Power BI dashboards of, what's going on in the island. And they did some really cool stuff like temperature, weather predictions for ASBOs and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, it was all really good, but it was people knew what they'd like to be able to do, but they just couldn't. I don't know if it's still in production or not, but certainly, that started because they had awful road traffic data, road traffic incidents, not and not accidents, incidents.
So the sales, was it just going into every government department? Like, what were you actually doing?
Finding like-minded people.
Okay.
Obviously, it was helpful that I'd been here.
So people knew you from sort of golf and C5 days.
C5 generally, it was a lot of it came through people I'd known from there. I didn't really go in and try and
pilfer.
No. If they came, then that's different.
Yeah, cool.
But I also, as I said, I didn't want to be a bad leaver.
No.
And I was a shareholder.
Indeed. So at the start, it was just you, obviously. How long was it before you took on your first employee?
So that'd be Ben. Mm-hmm. And I'd worked with him at Standard Bank previously, both when I was at C5 and also subsequently. Mm-hmm. And we got to know each other and someone said, why don't you think about him? Because I was saying it's just getting a bit beyond me being able to do the projects as well as to find new clients. Yeah. And, at that point I was still doing some SQL work as well, just while people got the hang of the fact that a new tool. Mm-hmm. And then, got Ben involved and he really thrived with it and he was with me for, a
long time.
Yeah, he did great. He's now project managing at one of our clients, doing really well. And I think, that's one of the other nice things about it all is that, in a small community, then, you get to see people's career progress. Yeah. See how their lives move on.
Yeah. We've had 3 of the team that have left have set up their own business accountancy firm, so that's great. When did it stop being you talking about Alltricks and the market talking about Alltricks? How did you get to that? Was it just about like every day going and seeing people, or what was it that...
Just got to keep plugging away, don't you? I mean, there would be, some of our best clients didn't sign up for a year.
Right.
Would say that, look, we'll do it eventually, but I need
wasn't a priority or something.
I need a project that has budget.
Right.
I'm not just going to add a new tool.
No.
There's got to be a reason. There's got to be an outcome.
Yeah. Okay.
But we understand what the tool is. That's going to be really good.
Yeah.
And, we'll be in touch. But we get very little inbound inquiries.
Yeah.
Typically it is through contacting people and people.
That first project is something that is just unavoidable at board level. It's just so obvious that so the risk profile is quite low. And were you targeting those sorts of projects, or was it sort of this is what it can do? It's obvious. You should just do it. Like what was the would you have changed the way that you were selling when you started off selling, or not really? Looking back, are there any learnings out of that?
Keep it simple.
Right.
I think I thought it was such a cool tool that I couldn't resist showing off. And I sort of look back at some of my early demos and I'd build a regression analysis report for someone that just wanted to automate their month end. Just because I was, when people were enthusiastic, then I was enthusiastic, but then that kind of raises more questions.
Yeah.
I think, reflecting on your question, I think Katrin Erb, who was at Standard Bank, who was our first user.
Okay.
I thought everyone would be like her.
Okay.
Within a year, she was the European Alltricks champion.
Wow.
And just purely self-taught. No, never done any coding. Had only ever done Excel and a bit of Tableau. And so having her as well, that kind of created...
Yeah.
I assumed that it would be... could be a really powerful tool within organisations. But when you seeing someone really grab hold of it, happily now she's working with us again.
Oh, nice.
So that's nice. And... it's a kind of, if you're good at Alteryx, then we can deal with people. It's not like, you talk to someone who's good at SQL, but if they did joins differently, then you go,
I don't like it. Yeah, fair enough. And so that started to build up, and that was going really well. How did you get to a point where the Jersey company was like, I can't remember what you were with Alteryx, but Premier Partner or something massive? What was the scale of that in terms of being in a very small jurisdiction, but being quite a big player in Alteryx's world? How did that happen?
So we started obviously here. And then, we got like Rookie of the Year or something like that one year. And then,
right. What did that mean? Sales targets or
just a new emergent? Okay. Like just generating, license transactions. Mm-hmm. And then just after that, it was just size that as clients started to grow and get into, not just solving things on the desktop, but actually automation, getting servers, being part of the IT estate, then that was really when it started getting more of a flywheel, and then it's less vulnerable to someone saying, I don't like this, I'll do it. I'll go back to doing it in SQL, do it in Excel.
Right. Yeah, because there's always been that. I mean, but even there was a conflict at the point where you're sort of saying, we like selling professional services. Actually, I want to go and sell a product. And then the harder bit of that sometimes is that there's large IT departments, and actually, back in the, before you left C5, we would have conversations about, how do you talk to IT? How do you talk to the board? How do you work these things out so that, you're genuinely trying to help, and it's just sometimes there are blocks to that. Do you think that's changed at all? Are the IT departments still sort of nervous about bringing in new tools in the same way they were 10, 12 years ago? Is there enough understanding at a board level of the impact of some of these tools? Where do you think things are at the moment?
Well, I think, IT, people in IT, that's really been my background.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's a hard job. They've got lots of servers. They've got lots of hardware to look after. They've got lots of users to look after. Mm-hmm. They've got all the internet to look after. You've got all of the cyber.
Yep.
There's sort of non-negotiables. You've got to be looking out for cyber, and all of these threats and all of the complexity just keeps increasing. Everyone's now got some cloud platforms like Salesforce, HubSpot, things like that, but they're still part of your estate, even though you're not looking after the machines anymore. But the machines are all in the cloud now, but it's effectively a lot of it is still machines. Yeah. So there's a lot to do. You've got to patch them for vulnerabilities. You've got to keep them up to date. You've got to test them. And so there's a lot of work, and that just keeps going up. Mm-hmm. And so the last thing you need
is change.
Sort of simplification change would be good, but new systems. Yeah. And I think everyone is very cynical of new platforms that purport to allow people in the business to do things themselves, because enough people have had to deal with the aftermath.
Why did you do that?
Well, it could be something as straightforward as an Excel macro that someone wrote that the whole company relies on, and then they go, and then it breaks, and no one knows what to do. Yeah, and then that suddenly becomes, and then then the IT suddenly it's their problem, and it's not anything they've ever known about. So that's perfectly understandable. Caution about new technologies. I don't know if you remember robotic process automation was kind of a fad a few years ago. A lot of people did that, which was the way that you could basically get a computer to act like a person. Yeah. So for your team who go, why do I have to go and update it there and there and there? You could get a robot to do that. Yeah. But it's like a production line. If something slightly goes wrong, then all the boxes are just piling off the end and it can go haywire. Yeah. With better data, it doesn't have to. But anyway, the people again on their side of the desk started to build things that quickly become critical to the organisation. Yeah. And my premise would be you should only be doing that with a tool that's supportable, that anyone can come in and pick up a workflow if it's not coded, if it's just all there on the same interface that everyone's got. Yeah. Because changing core platforms is hard. Yeah. And necessarily
expensive, I guess.
Yeah. And is, everyone's very worried about the risk of, an unthought of complication of a change. You don't want the ATMs to stop working. Yeah. So therefore, there's going to be a lot of stuff being solved on the desktop. Yeah. That probably should be more widely understood.
Well, even working from home on a personal computer and having Claude Cowork, downloaded onto your machine, all that sort of stuff. There's going to be a whole new wave of risks that IT departments are going to have to think through, and I guess that's going to reduce the space for change and innovation, maybe at a bigger level.
I don't know. I think it's going to be irresistible.
Right.
I think that particularly, you're working a lot with Claude as well. I think, we're doing stuff with it. I think a lot of people are doing stuff with it. And I think it's the natural next step, but it's how do you make that acceptable to the business?
Yeah. We built a business valuation model that would normally take 3 days to build out, and that's now down to, it's not perfect, but 2 or 3 hours to build something of value. Something you said to me a long time ago was the tail is always very long on these things, and actually there's a lot of success to the 80%, but the last 20% is exhausting, and my personality profile doesn't deal with that hard work at the end. So it's I think that's the other thing is I'm putting effort into these things, but it's the completion of them, but B, Claude Design came out on Friday. I was using Gamma and I don't need it anymore. So you put quite a lot of effort into using something like that, and it's very difficult to visualize anything staying static to the point where something better doesn't come along. There was something on X the other day about the next iteration of Grok being better than Claude because they're all developing at different time frames. I mean, if you sort of said, I picked Alteryx because there's a 10-year time horizon. Is there ever going to be a 10-year time horizon ever again? I mean, how do you see that moving? And how do people choose what to invest in?
So again, fortunately, I just have a very data-centric view of all of this. Mm-hmm. So that our remit is to be able to provide in memory, repeatably believable rated data, and to be able to say I'm 100% sure of this. 80% I'm very confident, the rest I'm not so confident.
Okay.
And then if you can provide that sort of context, then you can deal with that with models and be more or less creative in that model. Or if you don't know about the data, then you're going to have to build a lot of cross-referencing, and I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. No. I mean, I saw some benchmarks last night, actually, funny enough, on the new Grok.
Right.
That is a lot better, but still not as good as Codex and Claude Code. X was nowhere.
No.
2 years ago on this. This is a startup. They built a cluster of NVIDIAs that was twice as big as anyone said was possible in a tenth of the time that they thought was possible.
Wow.
I got probably overly invested in it. And got very fed up with that 20% of, God, why have they changed this? Everything changes all the time. Yeah. So just try and abstract it again. I don't think we're going to be able to be first movers in this.
No.
I think that people in the businesses are going to be able to build some amazing stuff with agents, with co-work and things like that. And really, hopefully that will derive more demand for for usable, validated data.
Yeah.
And there'll be new tools come along, and we've always adopted the best of what's there.
So it's understanding that process, right? How do you choose what's best?
Well,
is it gut feel or
I guess. And that's the problem here, right? So as you mentioned, your company valuation spreadsheet, that it did 80% of it, and it was amazing. What the 20% was that it didn't do a good job on. If you've never done it before, how do you know that?
Well, exactly, yeah.
And then, of course, you can layer an agent on top of that in order to then test, and then you can have an agent on top of that, and an agent on top of that. But then suddenly, like you say, you start...
Well, you'll take the 3 days that you would have saved. I mean, we've got clients who sort of built something in one system and then asked another system to critique that, and then asked another system to critique the... It's like, okay, well, at that point, you are spending a lot of time, but you're still not understanding the core of why something's not right or why it's valuable. And so that experience is going to be something that I'm not sure how that will play through. We've just been given a quote for one of the software systems that we run. They said it's 120 grand a year for this software. We're only going to charge you 65, and we're like, well, we think we can build something for 15. So what you're talking about, there's and so. That's a decision we're making later today is like, well, do we try and do this? In my brain, it's always been never try and build something yourself because you have to look after it. All the good things you said, right? But now is like, when's that tipping point of there's no longer a justification for that system. We're going to go and do something that's truly bespoke and actually probably will create a competitive advantage. So you'll be able to bake in why you're better at doing things than competitors of yours. This particular software system has 5 local businesses using it. By not using that, we would always have to change our process to match what the developers thought. Now we can have whatever process, well, in theory, but how do you get the data out? Yeah, it's a really difficult decision to decide, on a 5-year time horizon. The direction of travel is we're going to build our own and we're going to make it work and it's going to be cheaper because the technology's better. Let's do it, and, dual systems and all those sorts of things. There'll be more of a role for consultants, but in a truly consultatory manner rather than, well, I'll do it for you. It's going to be sitting together and working together and somehow making these things happen. And we're back to people. And then it's like, well, actually, there are still jobs.
Well, that's super hard, right? Because where do you find those? Those are the hardest people to find.
Yeah.
The sort of
translators.
What would be called as like a forward deployed engineer.
Right.
The person that's with a client helping translate what they're trying to achieve with what they know is deliverable and what they know is validatable. Yeah. And I think that's, it's a problem. Obviously, there's a lot of talk of this on Twitter, by all of the founders in the field. Yeah. Kind of, what does this mean? Mark Anderson, Salesforce was just said, it's all just going to be APIs now. We're not going to sell a system anymore. And, and there's, everyone, it's all the cats amongst the pigeons, but there's not a clear winner because you've got a lot of people who are building like Clawbot and, all of these agents and they're sort of spinning loads of stuff up and things, but then kind of burning out because you have to be there for when they fall over. Yeah. And, in terms of you building your system.
Well, not me personally, someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, but, it's how do you know it's going to carry on? What are the guardrails going to be? Yeah. You can't just go, we've just got rid of all of that cost now and we don't need it anymore. No. There's a transfer of cost going on in how people are talking about this, like Accenture just taking on 5,000 more people, right?
Wow.
I think it will be a bit like when people were replacing mainframe systems with PC-based systems, and Arthur Andersen would have a team of 4 minding the shop. Yeah. It was still cheaper than having the mainframe. Yeah. But that was it was a frontier technology that wasn't totally reliable. Yeah. And I'm not sure organizations are ready for that because who are they going to talk to? Who's able to understand the total breadth of the organisation?
100%.
And, because people aren't in post as long as they were. No. So, there's definitely been a reduction in tribal knowledge. I think a lot more people have inherited situations rather than having been part of the design. Yeah. And there's a lot of really hard stuff to do there. Yeah. I mean, clearly it's going to happen, because it's too big to fail. And what is possible when you get it right is startling.
Do you think that this is everything I wanted it to be in terms of, you've been going, 12, 13 years now, 11 and a half years. I mean, is there anything you look back on and you think, I wish I'd done that, or I wish I'd changed this? Because, I mean, a lot of people say, I've got no regrets. I mean, it's not that you've got regrets. It's just that, like you said, it wasn't that you were right. It's that you weren't wrong. And I think that's a nice way of putting it. But do you think there would have been any benefit in scaling a different way, or maybe picking another system at the same time? Or did picking that niche really, that's how you got to be the premier partners for Altics? Because it was, I'm putting my eggs in this basket and I'm going for it.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think there's something to be done, something to be said for, pick what you think you're best at and what energizes you the most. Yeah. And for me, fundamentally, it's tidying data up. That's what I'd do if I wasn't, I'd do it for fun. There's just a joy to me in order. Reversing entropy, which is everything just gets worse unless you do something about it. Data Robot was really cool. It was just a shame that the adoption, they were too early. Right. Really, like it's still better than any other predictive analytics platform, not generative AI, but predictive analytics. It just wasn't mass market adoption, so I kind of got a bit over enthusiastic about that.
That's fine.
I still don't think I was wrong.
No.
But then, if people don't, it's not good if it's not adopted. All that really matters is, are we helping people get outcomes?
And geographical expansion. So you have managed to, obviously the finance industry deals with a lot of off-island clients, but it's rare that a consultancy deals with off-island clients. I mean, and you're starting to do more of that now, in terms of trying to get off Jersey a bit more. How difficult is that to actually deal with clients?
It's not even an active thing. It's just happening.
Okay.
And, we're still landing new clients locally because Jersey's such an international place in terms of business that we would get to be recommended into group from local RBSI. We got into NatWest Group that way, right, through through that. And same with like Standard Bank and and a lot of the fund administrators that are here, they've got obviously branches elsewhere, and then they've got clients who are in Switzerland, Luxembourg, Nordics, and also Phil with us, was able to introduce us to places. He did a great job. Got us, for instance, into Aldi.
Wow. What are you doing is it public knowledge what you're doing for Aldi?
Yeah. So it was during COVID and they didn't have an online platform.
All right.
So they had an online platform. They couldn't get data into it for their 160 stores because all the data was different. It's just a natural consequence, really, of the fact that everyone's really got the same problems. And we only really make sense because obviously, it's an investment in the software. So it needs to be... What is it? The juice has got to be worth the squeeze. You're not going to do it for fun. And there's obviously, a really strongly used tool by people like PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, all of the management consultancies. So there's a kind of a natural flow of alumni from those places.
And do you think Alteryx will start to work with slightly smaller organisations? Is there for their growth?
Obviously, investing a huge amount into agentic technologies. We're just putting in their MCP server at the moment. MCP is a way for agents to talk to each other. This is all very important. Otherwise, each agent has to be able to deal with a fresh start every time. This is more agents telling each other what to do and where they got to. And so it's all, they're really adding all of that, but obviously it's a really competitive market. I don't think any of our clients ever really truly took it as far as they could have done. It's a straightforward technology, relatively speaking, once you get the head around you're trying to do something differently.
Well, the cost of experimentation must be going down, and therefore you would think the risk is going down, and therefore if people have got policies that allow them to experiment more, you'll start to see a lot more value from it. I guess the question is, not knowing the detail, will that experimentation be happening in Alteryx, or will it just be happening directly through Claude, whatever?
Hopefully people will be coming up with better solutions and better outcomes for what they need to be doing. And I think, they should unlock a lot of new outcomes that weren't possible before. So then it's about managing them, and it's about, well, how do you know it's right? And how do you know if it worked? If you think of a sort of business experiment of, right, I'm going to get rid of this platform. I'm not going to pay £65,000 anymore. So I'm going to hypothesize, am I better off building something or having something built? And then the key thing is obviously, am I going to budget for, because it's not one and done. So you've got maintenance overhead, and then you're going to have to keep it up to date. The
security risk is presumably much higher.
Well, don't know. Well, obviously you've got things. AI is there. AI is both. It's like Homer Simpson said, beer was the cause and the solution of all the world's problems. AI is going to be the same. So you're going to have to use AI to stop AI. Compromise.
They'll all be fighting each other, won't they, or something like that.
I saw a funny tweet yesterday of a guy who's a computer software engineer, who changed the name of his Wi-Fi to "Hack Me If You Can," and the next day his Wi-Fi had been renamed to "Challenge Accepted." and so that's even an expert. That's even an expert, right? And so there's going to be an arms race, but that's true of whatever you're trying to do. But it's I think an observation is that in organisations, and I think this is going to be particularly important because, you know, you're going to be paying for a lot of tokens.
Yeah.
You know, so
they're going to have to get the money back.
Right now, it's super subsidised.
Yeah.
They're basically crack dealers trying to get you to use it again. But at some point, you've got to pay for the compute. There's a lot of people trying to lobby, you know, obviously very self-interest, saying, token use should go to OPEX, not project or not computing department or whatever. But there's going to be a lot of pressure on that. And I think organisations need to be thinking about their accounting slightly differently. Because what we observe, obviously, is that, let's say, you know, an organisation helps automate a process and, you know, there's 2 FTEs that don't need to be doing a really boring regulatory reporting job. Yeah. If they have those people been redeployed to something else or not. But if they have, right, then the next year it's kind of, well, what have you done for me lately? You know, that is, how do you reflect the compounding nature of ROI and technology? Organisations are going to have to be better than that because they're going to get very bad-tempered about.
Well, but you know, there's reporting tools, balanced scorecard, all sorts of old school, you know, reporting tools that are outside of just the accounting framework. They're going to become more important because, you know, how resilient you are, how much you're innovating, how quickly you're reducing risk in different areas. All those things need to be thought about in a different way. I mean, it's still really exciting. It's just too much.
But how does one come up with sort of sensible judgments on that? I know people who've got reminders every hour use AI. Yeah, they're being monitored. Yeah, part of your balanced scorecard is using AI.
So Dan, in terms of the future of Continuum, I mean, obviously it's all gone really well. Decent sized team, multi-jurisdiction, still trying to sort of pick the next winner in terms of what the next stage is. Outside of the technology improving, as a business, what are you hoping for as the next 5 years? Are you starting to make new strategic plans, or where are you at with the next stage of growth?
Obviously be, you know, part of the conversation and leading the conversation with how does one adopt these new technologies and it be data-driven, not opinion-driven or prompt-driven. If the prompt is there, then it has to come from the data. You know, you have to, and we can do amazing things with that already. The other thing is no one knows. No. Right? There's no way all of these different companies are going to survive. No. In their current form, at least. Efficiency and simplicity is kind of going out the window a bit at the moment, that there's huge stacks of technology being built on top of themselves and very compute expensive. I think we're still not there yet. From my point of view, it's like, well, does it add up to zero? Yeah. And, you know, to pick the technologies that will solve problems provably, generate new outcomes, generate new income, reduce cost, reduce time, but also that will keep working.
The systems will get to a point where the integration of multiple systems and the source of truth and all that will get really, really good. But you've still got humans at the start of this process interacting with people to having to putting data in. Do you think that as the technology will get better, there'll be more controls around how they're putting the data in, or that there'll be training around, like, you know, how will the technology industry, it will solve for a lot of the things that, you know, as the technology improves, you'll get even better and better at doing that. But there'll still be some elements where the data, you said at the start, all the databases are wrong, right? There's always bad data. How do you think, will there be any effort, do you think, to try and solve the bad data problem on its way in, or will it always just be rectification?
I mean, that's what I would really like to see as an application of generative AI, is just fixing systems. There's really no reason why you need a system, right? That's the death of SaaS is what people say. Right. All you really need is a database, right? And AI should be able to infer from that what it is you do, who you do it for, where you do it, and then who you are, what you're likely to want to know, and then just give you what you need to see. I mean, there's no reason from a maximalist point of view that everything can't be inferred from data. Right. And so therefore data gaps and data completeness should all be properly inferable by an AI. Now, that was really where I was when GPT 3.5 came out. I thought, wow, I'm going to disappear in a puff of logic at this point, because why am I here? You won't need us. And obviously, it's taken a lot longer than we thought. That's what I really want to see, is kind of self-healing systems, self-suggesting systems, right? Because everyone's got far too many decisions to make. I think with AI, it's far too easy for people to second guess themselves and counter-indicate. And I think I'd like to see some analysis on numbers of decisions made in organisations over time. That actually we're really in analysis paralysis right now.
Yeah.
I think. And then if you've got your HubSpot is well populated and consistent with your Xero, then the AIs that are being brought, that are being developed by Xero, that are being developed by HubSpot, are getting better and better, and they will continue to get better. Otherwise, people are going to just stick a database and then stick an AI on top of it, and pops your uncle, there's a CRM.
In terms of the business, there's a period of sort of, you said not necessarily first mover, but the general principles. We've called this #GreatAtBusiness, right? I mean, what's your definition, do you think, now and in the future, of the difference between being a good business and being a great business? Where does that, is there a distinction in your head between those two things?
Yeah, well, you've got to be doing something you enjoy doing. I think that's fundamental. There's talking to people who are talking about setting up their own businesses and things. Better not be something you hate.
No, indeed. Unless it's, even the money doesn't, as long as you get out of it within 12 months, I guess.
When does that ever happen, right? So, it's very... People always underappreciate how long it takes to get new clients. And onboarding and things like that is super hard these days. It's much harder than it ever was before. You've got to enjoy it. You've got to have a team you like. Your team's got to enjoy it. And from a personal point of view, I really like, we use you guys. I like engaging experts where we've done as much as we can automatically with hygiene internally, but then have external experts who can slot in and do things that they enjoy doing that I don't.
We're not pointless yet.
I think that's the way I can see a way in which we are microservice providers to lots of people.
Yes.
Because we're really, really good at one thing.
Yeah.
And it's just about how do people get to find who you are.
Yeah.
And we will also increasingly be doing projects where we're sort of in between organisations, kind of playing in the whole. We've got a fund manager client who's just massively reduced the amount of effort, doing it better, quicker, cheaper. Which is obviously the watchword. And they're able to do that just by handling data better and being able to be better interacting with people who are sending them bad data. Just have the ability for that to just get bounced. Unbalancing balance sheets aren't available. So please have another go.
And so that innovation, it's just the constant innovation piece is where you guys want to stay ahead of the curve, and that's sort of really being great, is spending the money in the R&D and making sure all the team are actually want to be there and enjoying their jobs. And it's interesting, the marketing side of things, as people want more and more niche, the visibility of how you make yourself visible is going to be increasingly important. And there's probably a role for data to play in that as well.
We're really trying. It's hard. To get, not cold outreach. It's going to be people that know people who we know, who are in roles or organisations that would look like likely targets. But it's very difficult. Getting people's attention these days is very difficult.
Well, Dan, thanks so much for your time. I really enjoyed that. And I'm sure it'll all go fine. You know what you're doing. You've been doing it a long time. And but no, I really appreciate your time.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much for doing this. They're very interesting conversations.
Cool.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.